Well, Emmanuel, it's nice to talk to you and here in the gallery and get to speak to you about your artwork. Thanks for coming today.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, of course. So just going to get into some of these questions here about your work and your experiences. The first one, what childhood or teen experiences of yours introduced you to the arts?
Well, I'm a Denverite who grew up in East Denver, a member of a family of 12, and we lived near the Five Points area, and my father and mother separated when I was 4 years old, so I grew up. Well, at that time it was a black ghetto, and so we were economically really poor at the time, and so as a consequence of that, many of my siblings left by the time they were 15 years old from the family, and including myself. When I was 13, I started getting in trouble a lot. And was a juvenile delinquent for a few years, and during that period, I served my first sentence at the Lookout Mountain School for Boys in Golden, Colorado. And while I was there, I began doing my artwork in a cell that just had a toilet, a bed, and a sink. It's just about a 5 by 8 foot cell that they used to put you in at the age, even that age, at the age of 13, and you would stay in there for a couple of weeks before they put you in the rest of the population. But during that time, I was bored, of course, and I just had this kind of strong urge to draw if I could get pencil and paper, but they didn't allow it. They would let you out 1 hour a day in the day, what they called the day room, and they would allow you to smoke in there. And when what I did was picked up the matchsticks that the other kids left, and I took them back to my room, and we had a towel, paper towels, brown paper towels, and so I began drawing with matchsticks and paper towels while I was in that cell. And I did some really good drawings, I thought, and I wanted to show them to someone who would be impressed by them enough to give me a paper and pencil. So I faked an earache to go to the nurse, and she saw what I did, was very impressed, and I asked her for a paper and pencil and told her I would sneak it in my room, and I would tell them I stole it if they catch me with it. That was really the beginning of my career as an artist, and I did my first mural there when I was 13 years old. After that, I pretty much declared myself an artist, and I just decided to pursue that for the rest of my life, which I have.
What did you view as your role as an artist during the Chicano movement?
Well, my role was doing artwork for an organization called the Crusade for Justice, which was started in 1966. It was the first Chicano civil rights organization in the country. I did initially bumper stickers and posters that were used in protest. In that time period, there were a lot of civil rights issues, not only with African Americans, but with Chicanos, especially in Colorado. And so my role was just doing artwork for this organization. Actually, in 1966, I went, after working with the Crusade for Justice, I met Cesar Chavez in Denver at a fundraiser where I had my first exhibition. And at that exhibition, I presented him with a painting of mine, and he invited me to come out to Delano, California, to help the farm workers struggle that was going on there to be unionized. And so I went out there and I did some artwork for Cesar Chavez. Later, I was commissioned to do the farm workers altar, uh, which was used at an event where Cesar Chavez broke his 25-day fast in March of 1968. And that event was a very important event in the history of the Chicano movement. And I was honored to have done the altar that was used to do their mass. That piece today is in the Museum of American Art in the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., along with a couple other pieces I did in that era. So I worked with Chavez, Corky, and Reyes Lopez Tijerina, who was in New Mexico, where I also lived. And I did the Tierra Muerta poster, which has also become an iconic piece of artwork that represents the movement at the time, especially in New Mexico. So during that time, I was using my creativity to support the movement. And probably the most well-known piece that I did was the creation of the mestizo head, which has become a symbol of the Chicano movement since then. So, and that was created in the latter part of 1967.
What is its deeper significance in your own artwork and for the movement?
I met another artist at a protest rally, a Puerto Rican artist. His name is Carmelo Emanuel Martinez, who is a very well-known artist now in Puerto Rico. And we are both about 19 years old and in college, and we wanted to pursue mural painting. At that time, there was virtually no murals in this area, or practically in the whole country, that were community murals, community-based type murals. And so he had told me about David Alfaro Siqueiros, who was the most significant muralist living at that time, who was working on the largest mural in the world in Mexico City. And him and I decided to go to Mexico to see if we can't work with him, because we heard that he was accepting volunteers. And we didn't have the money to go, so we hitchhiked. And we went to Mexico, and during that time, I seen an image at the University in Mexico, a tri-faced head, which was actually a kind of a baby type head with three faces. And that's really the symbol that urged me to come up with the mestizo head. It was a mosaic mural by Eppens. So that was my inspiration to create the mestizo head. And I essentially closed the mouth, because it was a symbol with the mouth open, and I added a mustache to it, which was pretty popular at that time. A lot of people don't know what mestizo means, but it's just the offspring of indigenous or Indian and European, Spanish in our case. So most of the population, Chicanos and Mexicans, are mestizos. So it became a symbol that was used in the civil rights movement, and the whole Chicano movement has an identity symbol that related to all of us. And it was just very easily drawn out. You know, kids would draw it. Other artists start putting it in their murals as our symbol.
So color is a dominant element in your artwork. How does your vibrant color palette contribute to your message or stories of your paintings?
Well, you know, art is a thing of spirit, and I think what you know, the colors are the most important element in my work. color is universal. It's psychologically, it's something that I think we all enjoy, just like we do music, for example. And color has been the most important element of engaging other people and energizing them and being able to express my passion, for life or for whatever objective I have in that particular piece of artwork.
What do you consider to be the main goals of your body of artwork?
Well, as you know, the body of my artwork is pretty versatile. It's pretty, I do different things. I've done a lot of murals. I've done a lot of easel paintings, and I'm a sculptor also. The body of my work is essentially, I guess you might divide into two different things. One is what I do personally in easel paintings or drawings that is just reflective of my own self-expressions. And the other is commissions. And when you're doing commissions, or you have certain criteria that you're trying to meet, then you're dealing with a body of work that is not only reflective of me, but some of the elements that was in part of the criteria that the client or the site requires. For example, for the last 10 years, I have done over 50 murals in 14 states in facilities of incarcerated kids. And I have, when I do the compositions for each one of these facilities, the content of the mural has to have certain positive elements in it, like education and making better choices in life. So in that sense, I'm kind of limited, and I have to focus on what is going to make the most impact on the kids and what are they going to remember. Hopefully it's going to influence them, because you could see it on a daily basis to make better choices in their lives. So I'm using mural painting and colors and composition to try to make an impact and resonate, with the young people. And the other part of that is that they do about 75 to 80% of the work. I design it, I mix their colors, and they paint them in. So so it has, what I'm getting at is the body of my work encompasses different aspects. It's not just my personal expressions. There are times when I just don't want to think about criteria or content or anything, and I just put a blank canvas up and I just start painting and let the painting itself suggest what I'm going to do. So that's when I get into the realm of abstract type of work, because it's something that just evolves on its own, with no preconcepts or any kind of plan. I'm not dealing with clients. I'm not dealing with kids or anybody else. So you might consider that the work that I have a lot of fun with.
Could you explain the symbolism and artistic message in your Denver-based mural, La Alma?
Yeah, the symbolism essentially is using complementary colors and other complementary elements in that mural. On one side, for example, you have since it was done on a recreation center, uh, you have a contemporary person who represents the recreation on one side, on the other side, an indigenous people that represents past culture. And then some of the other elements that are complementary or opposite, you might say, is like the eagles that are on there that are divided into a couple different colors. One's that's very, that represents kind of like the moon, and the other earth. In the talons of that eagle, you have birth on one side by a symbol of the fetus that the eagle is grasping, and on the other claw, the skull, which represents death. But then there's also corn in the middle, which represents the staff of life in indigenous cultures and in mestizo cultures. And it still is pretty, corn is a very important element, and I used it a lot in my artwork. And then there's the mariposa, which is the butterfly. Now, I added that in later, but the butterfly too is a real symbol of transitional, whether it was in the cocoon and becoming this beautiful species here. So I use that symbol, and you have also the contrast of the urban scene in the dark, a silhouette there, and then the rural scene, which is two other elements that are different in relation to Chicanos. Of course, the sun is always an element, very strong element in my work, and that's in the back of the symbolism, which is what's standing out.
And going along with that, the story behind the vandalizers, and you got them involved to repaint it. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. This mural, La Alma, was done in 1978, and it was done in the Lincoln Park, on the Lincoln Park Recreation Center. And this mural was actually done with the help of the community. I wasn't paid for the mural. It was something I did for a documentary that was done on murals to show the process of the mural that they did in about 1 or 2 minutes. They showed the entire process from the beginning to the end. And so it was kind of a spontaneous type of mural. I didn't really have a preliminary composition before I did it. I just kind of did it. We started working on it, and the young people, again from the community, helped paint it. La Alma's become a very iconic mural. For 17 years, that mural was not touched. A lot of people thought that being in the middle of 2 housing projects with a lot of kids that do tagging and all this, that it was just going to be tagged up. But 17 years went by, and it was tagged a little bit. The community there were kind of upset about that, and they were able to track down who did it through their symbolism or whatever they do when they tag. I thought, well, this might be a good opportunity to restore it. So I submitted a plan to the Colorado Council on Arts and Humanities and the city, and got a small grant to restore the mural. And as part of that plan or proposal, I would engage the kids that actually tagged it, and their punishment was going to be to help me repaint the mural. And it pretty much changed their whole lives in a lot of ways. Some of them went on to do more fine artwork, and others, were just, of course, they were real sorry that they had done that, and they learned a lesson from that. And that mural to this day, hasn't been touched since. So it's still holding up really well.
life-transforming experience for many of them.
This message is really very simple, you know. Through education, you can get out of this place and get into a variety of different occupations. That's something that is a bigger service to the society.
When I first heard about the Emmanuel Project, they said
Project is
there was
called
a guy
Murals
who
of
was in
Hope, is
college
that correct? Or the Emmanuel Project? Is that?
Yeah, the Emmanuel Project. You could check more out on the website, emmanuelproject.org. And them are murals that I pointed out earlier about in all the different states and different facilities. The Emmanuel Project is still alive, and we go on pursuing other facilities that want a mural, and we try to seek the funding to get them done. And it makes a big impact. A lot of data has been done through this program, which could be seen on the website. Surveys and that type of thing that were done with the kids that participated, and it showed how their behavior was improved, and their academics, and so it did make a positive impact on these kids that are incarcerated. And the Emmanuel Project, was actually started by a woman who was one of my art students, and she became very wealthy, and she essentially supported this organization and started it, and she named it after me because that's where I got started, is in a facility. And except at that time, I didn't have the resources to do what I would have liked to do. I would have loved a project like the Emmanuel Project. And the kids it's just an amazing program for kids that are incarcerated, because this is a population that is really forgotten by this society. There's over 2,500 juvenile detention facilities in this country. And then, nearly 30,000 kids that are incarcerated. Kids from 10 years old to 18. And like I said, a lot of them, there's really not very good programs, or very little programs in those facilities that engage the kids in a creative type of art project like this one.
So what do you consider your personal purpose of engaging those at-risk youth? What's your purpose in engaging them in the arts?
What I didn't mention in my youth is that I was actually helped. When I was 15 years old, I met a guy by the name of Bill Longley, who was doing an apprenticeship training program for high-risk youth. And I met him. He had already heard about me through the school system and some of the awards that I won statewide. And once he heard about me, he went, sought me out, and found out that I was in jail still. So he essentially committed himself to getting me out of jail. And he sold his only vehicle, got an attorney. We fought the case and we won. And he got me back into school, and I was his apprentice for 2 years. And Bill Longley was a sculptor, a painter, and a muralist. And so he was my mentor. And what he did for me is really what I'd like to do for other juvenile delinquents or high-risk youth, however you want to call them. But so I really feel like through this program, I'm really giving back to that community, to that population that a lot of people don't seem to care about.
Well, thank you. That's all we have today. Thank you so much for coming into the gallery and speaking with me. I really enjoyed getting some insights from you about your work.
Well, thank you for inviting me.